Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to class this afternoon. Today, we're just going to be having a little talk about this idea of winning. I'm going to kind of frame this in reference to the workplace and working, and that is what this course is all about, right? Making sure you're job ready and kind of going into things with the right mindset. And so we're going to be looking at this from the perspective of careers and jobs. We can really take this idea, take this stuff that we'll be talking about, and apply it to anything. Because I'm going to be talking about the concept of an award and what an award is and what our award or reward should be. What is the reward for hard work? What is the reward for good work? What should our expectations be? And I think, there is a line of thinking, a way that we should approach this where, obviously we want compensation, right? Like that's part of, if not the only reason why we do work or have a job. And then if we go above and beyond our job duties, we would expect to be compensated more. Or have, and I think, and what I'll be talking about today is not about that. Double negative there, not. But I want to look at the idea of work and doing a good job in sort of a bigger context. Right? So this is not me telling you that you shouldn't expect to be compensated for your work. You should know your value, and that's what you should work for. No less. But this is me sort of talking about how we can motivate ourselves and how we can stay sort of intrinsically motivated. So beyond any compensation, beyond any external factor that gives us incentive to do work, we get this question sometimes of, well, how do you get up in the morning? How do you decide to keep going? What gets you through the day? And definitely compensation can help with that. But I think there are other extrinsic, or rather intrinsic, motivating factors that you can put onto yourself that not only help you do your job well, help you stay motivated, but can also further your career down the line. And so we're looking at this idea of an award, right? Or what our reward should be. And we've talked about, how are we motivating ourselves? What is going on? What's our intrinsic motivation to get up and go to work and do a good job? Because there are a lot of extrinsic factors here, right? There are a lot of outside incentives and potential punishments that can force us to kind of go to work, right? We're looking for salaries. We're looking to not get fired so we can, keep paying for things that we want and need. We want to be able to meet our basic needs. And in order to do that in this sort of society, you need money. So we have these external factors that weigh on us really heavily in terms of why we need a job or why we need to keep our jobs. And if we only look at careers from that perspective, that's a burden, right? If we only look at our careers, if we only look at our jobs from the perspective of, I need to keep this job so I have money so I can keep food on the table, that's a burden. And you might have heard people say, well, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And to some degree, that's true, and that's kind of what I'm here to tell you about today. Is this idea that if you, do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life because, it's passion. But I'm going to take that old turn of phrase and I'm going to kind of turn it on its head a little bit. And instead of saying, well, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I'm going to tell you to love what you do. And you'll never work a day in your life. Because all of these external factors, all of these things were like, well, we need money so we can buy food, so we can pay our mortgages or our rents, have these basic needs met, that weighs us down. That's a burden. And we can either choose to look at our jobs from the perspective of this burden, which is still important. It'd be nice to live outside of this burden. However, the society that we've chosen for ourselves at large here forces this thing. It'd be nice to, live and work outside of this burden, but our hand is forced. So we have to deal with this burden. So since we have to deal with this burden, why not make the most of it? And so regardless of the job that you're in, we know about the external value that's coming out of that job, but what is our reward? Because I'm not rewarded with pay. I'm not rewarded with any of this, right? Like, the pay, the salary, that's part of a two-way contract. I do the work, you give me money. But when we think about reward, when we think about the trophy, when we think about kind of what we want, this sort of validation of good work or validation of work above and beyond, that's a little different. So we want to be validated. We want to have our work be known. But we're not always going to get that from other people. And that's part of the issue. And that's, not having that need for validation fulfilled is going to be a struggle. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to have this internal motivation. And, I've got about a handful of people, right, that I consider to be, I don't want to call them heroes because I don't like kind of venerating people like that, because like if you put people on a pedestal, they will always let you down. But they are individuals whose work and the things that they've done and the things that they create are in some way inspiring or motivational to me. I got this handful of people who fill these roles for me. And you probably have some people like that too. When I think about these people, I'm thinking about people like Daniel Schiffman, Alexis Ohanian, and Tom Sachs. Tom Sachs is an artist, a sculptor from New York City, contemporary, modern, still working, still going. And according to Tom Sachs, the reward for good work is more work. Okay, well, hold on. What does that mean? The reward for good work is more work, because of those external factors, because of that burden. Right? If we do good work, we get more of that work that allows us to continue making that money, that allows us to, continue paying our bills, continue to put food on the table. And so in a way, it becomes sort of difficult to kind of have this mindset and approach this mindset to our careers, right? Because we think, well, we've got the burden. We've got the things that we have to pay for. And the reward that we get for going above and beyond is that we keep getting to meet the burden. And that's sort of the cycle. But if there is anyone who I would say loves what they do, I would think Tom Sachs would be in that category, judging by the work that he produces. And so if you love what you do, the opportunity to do more of it presents itself as a great reward, because you get to fulfill that burden and you get to keep on doing what you love to do. Several years ago, one of the first semesters that I taught this class, we have the mock interview process. You all will go through this at some point, this semester, in a few weeks here. Not too much longer from now, you'll go through the mock interview process. And I was doing mock interviews in one of the first semesters that I taught this class. So this has been roughly 5 years ago now. And I sat that individual down, did the interview, and after the interview, I like to have a little bit of a debriefing where we just kind of talk about things. I ask you, how you think you did. We do a little back and forth about, assessment and things that you could do better. And we just talk about stuff, You'll experience that here in a few weeks. And this individual in particular, when I was asking him questions during the interview and when he was talking about IT in general, he didn't really seem to have that much passion for it, to have that much interest in it. And so I asked him the question, and I said, if you could do anything that you wanted to do, what would you do? And he looked me back in my face and he said that he would like to be a chef. A chef, right? Like, you've just spent the better part of the last 2 years working on an information technology degree, and you're sitting here telling me you'd rather be a chef. So in return, I asked him, I said, well, why did you do this? Why have you spent the last couple of years focusing on this IT degree and trying to get into IT? And he was just like, well, I thought it would be a place where I could make good money. It's that burden, right? It's the burden. We need money to survive, to continue paying rent, to put food on the table, etc. So you want to go somewhere where you think you'd make a lot of money to ease the burden. But then you encounter a new burden because you hate what you do. And even if you do good work, your reward is more work. It's more of the stuff that you hate. So why would you wake up every day, go to a job that you hate, to do work that you hate, just to fix the burden? Now, sometimes this is what we have to do. And I'm not saying that, like this is never something that we have to do, right? Sometimes, when you fall into a difficult situation, you have to do some stuff that you hate for a little while to maintain a life. And that's always less than ideal, but especially when we're looking toward the idea of a career instead of just a short-term job. Why would you, go to work every day 30 years to a job that you hated? And so he told me that he thought he could make good money doing it. And I looked at him and I said, let me ask you this. If you would have spent the last 2 years, instead of focusing on this, which you don't enjoy, you're not interested in, you're just doing it because you think you could make money at it, where do you think you'd be? How much money do you think you'd be making if you'd have spent the last 2 years, instead of on this IT degree, focusing on trying to be the best chef that you could be? Maybe going to culinary school, getting jobs in, restaurant kitchens, working your way up. How much money would you be making? And it might not be quite as much right away, but you'd also have a 2-year head start on doing what you wanted to do. And so this sentiment that the reward for good work is more work, it's not isolated to Mr. Sachs. This is something that has been similarly espoused as a platitude for hundreds of years. Right, we can look at several other people who have said something very similar. Jonas Salk, the virologist and innovator of the polio vaccine. George Sand, that's the pen name for a French author that was popular back in the 1800s. These individuals and many others all shared a similar ideology, a similar quote. And so when I think about that, and there's one in particular, there's one of these other quotes in particular that I think kind of takes and distills this a little bit better into kind of this idea of how we want to approach things. And this rephrasing of the quote comes from English art critic and philanthropist John Ruskin. Right? So again, old school. A couple hundred years ago. This individual said, "The highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get from it, but what they become by it." In the society that we, the royal we, everybody, in the society that we've created, what we get from work just supports the burden. But what we become by work and what we choose to become by the work that we choose to do, That's a whole different story. It takes the idea of how we approach the jobs that we do, and it pushes it to the next level. Because now when we think about doing the best work that we can, we're not just thinking about money. Obviously, it plays a part. But we're thinking about the other intrinsic rewards that come along with it that inspire us to do our best work. So what are these rewards? Leadership, knowledge, trust, ability, growth, as we continue to approach what we want to do with our careers with passion. That gives us opportunity. Because now we're learning, we're advancing, we're growing. And this learning or knowledge and growth adds to our skills, gives us more abilities. And then all of a sudden, we're not just given a task, but we're trusted with tasks. And this trust leads to leadership opportunities, management, administration, senior roles, progression. And this kind of dovetails with what we talked about last week in terms of our cups and how we want to fill our cups and when we want to move from one job to the next. Because it's this stuff here that we're putting in the cup. Our cups are filled with our rewards. And if we start to get complacent, if we start to work a job just because it helps us meet the burden, and we don't have the passion, we don't have the desire, the drive, we don't love what we do, we stagnate. We're just carrying around that one little cup with just the little bit that we have in it. So as we're approaching these situations, we want to do them intrinsically. We want to talk about things in terms of not just what this job can do for me, but what I can do for myself through this job. And we can take this and we can apply it to anything. You can apply it to school. You can apply it to relationships. Enter into anything that you do. Doing what you love. And things are going to go a lot better for you. So that's the end of what I'd like to tell you today. Thank you for watching. I'm going to hang out in the chat for just a couple minutes in case anybody watching with me live has any questions. If you're watching this recorded and you have any questions, send me an email. And I'll answer you to the best of my ability. But again, thank you for watching. That's all that I have for you for this week. We'll see you next time.